So, seeing that it's nearly Halloween at the time of this recording, I thought it'd be on topic to talk about one of my favorite gaming genres, survival horror. More specifically, I want to talk about the fixed camera angle survival horror games because while there has been a resurgence in the indie scene with fixed camera horror games, I still think that larger studios are sleeping on what is, in my opinion, an excellent way to present your game. I think fixed camera angles are dope and they really do deserve more praise. Nowadays, it feels like most gamers don't really like them like that, and I think that's in large part due to every game nowadays having some form of camera control. Even game series with previously fixed cameras like God of War and Devil May Cry have long since ditched their fixed camera angle predecessors for a more contemporary camera style. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a bad thing for games to want to opt for that more contemporary style. I mean, there's a reason why people like that style. I mean, it works. Look at Resident Evil 4. When that game came out, I mean, it was so revolutionary that every game, even games nowadays, use that same camera style. However, I do think that, it's a damn shame that outside of the indie scene, no other games seem to even, attempt to have fixed cameras anymore. Now, centering the discussion back to horror games, why exactly do I like this style of camera so much? Well, that's easy. I think when it comes to setting a tone and mood for your game, fixed camera angles really can be beat in that regard. An underappreciated part of game design, in my opinion, is pacing. With a fixed camera angle, every scene is deliberately placed by the developers, so they can set the scene in any way they see fit. For example, if they want to make the player feel like, someone is watching them, then they can set the camera to be outside a window, looking in on the character, or something along those lines. Or let's say they want to use wide angle shots to convey scale. It's this type of cinematography that gives us some of these beautiful angles and absolutely stunning shots in these horror games. Notice the word I used in that last sentence, cinematography. I noticed that a lot of games really want to go for a cinematic movie type feel. And I always wondered why these AAA studios, or even just studios in general, it doesn't have to be big, it could be big or small, why have they never really opted for fixed camera angles for this type of cinematic feel? I mean, what better way to convey a cinematic flair than through a director's direct vision, so to say? I mean, let's look at a shot like this from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's clear to me that if you want to have superbly directed movie-like scenes like this in a video game while still keeping it interactive and not just making it a cutscene, this can be easily achieved through the use of fixed camera angles. This isn't really just about being nostalgic for the old times. I genuinely do think that there is merit for this type of camera style. Once again, fixed camera angles offer the most effective way to not only set the tone and mood for your game, whether it be horror or not, but it's also, in my opinion, the best way to give your game a truly cinematic feel. Two great examples of this, one horror, one not, is for horror, the Resident Evil remake, it just feels like, those old grindhouse horror movies. And then if you want something more bombastic and action-packed, God of War 2 is a stunning game. Now, it wouldn't be fair to me to ignore some of the common complaints I do see about fixed cameras. A big one I see is concerning, your actual visibility. A lot of people would rather be able to see in front of them or be able to view what they want and when they want. And while I can understand that, I think that this is just the issue of not being able to leave your comfort zone when it comes to a more unique gaming experience. I think if more people went into these games with the mindset of, I want to see what the developers intended for me to see and experience, I think a lot of gamers would feel more inclined to at least give these types of games a try. Going hand in hand with this complaint is people saying that it creates unfair situations where your visibility is hampered unfairly, leading to, getting damaged because of not being able to see. I think this one is definitely on a game-to-game basis because most of the great fixed camera angle horror games out there don't really have this problem. Of course, there are a few questionable angles, especially in the first Resident Evil game, but I think that has more to do with the developers and not something to do with the actual, merit of fixed cameras in the first place. Just as an example, I do think it's fine to have an enemy that, that's obscured off screen as long as there are, indicators that, hey, the enemy is there. Maybe you can hear them, maybe the camera is leading your eyes to where they're at. And of course, if the camera switch doesn't immediately lead you to taking damage, there are proper ways to do it. And I do believe that at the least, most of the notable games don't make that mistake. I really do wish that the discourse around fixed camera angles wasn't so skewed against them. They're really not that bad, guys. The apprehension that these large gaming companies have to fix camera angles has really stagnated a lot of horror games. For example, something that still bugs me to this day is how, in my opinion, the Resident Evil 4 remake could have done something really cool and unique, especially considering the gaming landscape right now. It could have been the game to bring back the fixed camera angle horror games with a AAA budget. Just thinking about it, the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes brought the fixed camera angle games into the more modern over-the-shoulder perspective. And regardless of what I think of said remakes, this perspective shift allowed for the games to be an interesting new take on the classic formula. Now, here's Resident Evil 4, the game that pioneered the modern over-the-shoulder perspective. Now, hear me out about this. Imagine if, instead of just making yet another over-the-shoulder game, imagine if we got a modern take on a fixed camera Resident Evil game. I think that would have been something incredible. But alas, the modern gaming industry just isn't ready for that right now, it seems. It's the same reason that Silent Hill 2 remake ditched the old camera as well, which is funny considering Silent Hill has always had more of a hybrid system where only certain areas were fixed, but most of the time you can move the camera wherever you want. It seems like for now though, fixed camera angle horror games will remain back on the 5th and 6th generation of consoles, as well as indie games. Speaking of such, Tormented Souls 2 came out, and I haven't played it yet, but from the demo, I'm confident it'll be an amazing game. You guys should check it out. Especially if, you're like me and you like these fixed camera angle games, I think we should support as many of them as we can, and Tormented Souls has already proven itself to be a great game with the first one. Now, here's where I ask you, the viewer, what do you think? Of course, there's a lot more to be said about this discussion, but I'll keep it at this for now. I just want to do a quick discussion video because I'm actually curious to see what people are thinking about this topic, especially since horror games, indie and AAA, have been coming back in a big way. So, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully my next video will be out soon. A-Rock out.